Please don't let this be a Kimmy Kiss. Please don't let this be a Kimmy Kiss. Please don't let this be a Kimmy. Oh, hi there! Welcome back to the childhood manga mini-series. Now that I have filled up on my stupid shenanigans meter, we can finally get back on track until December at least. Although that's banking on me being able to finish this before Christmas. Anyway, today we are going to talk about a very interesting title in terms of English publication that also taught me to, well, never judge a book by its cover. Ratman. Ratman is a 2007 to 2013 romp, which you may have seen on your shelves of your local bookstore, since I find this to be a rather obscure title that no one else I know has heard of, but yet still managed to get its first 4 volumes published in English. And you know what? I'm somewhat glad that's the case, because it meant child me could get a taste of this delightful little shonen. Although the downside is that Tokyo Pop, who's the publisher for this title, never published the remaining volumes over here in the Western Sphere. So as a collector, I will have to choose between having a mixed collection and will make myself fucking vomit at the thought of that, or have a full Japanese set and then agonize at the fact that I can't read them. Anyway, Ratman is about our midget protag called Shuto, who wants to be a hero and is granted the power to become the Ratman to live out that dream. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait, isn't this just like the setup for My Hero Academia? And no, it isn't. Like, first things first, he's recruited by a villain organization to be a dark hero. Secondly, this is better than the second half of My Hero Academia. And thirdly, this is more Kamen Rider than My Hero Academia. I mean, look at him. He has the scarf, the suit design. He even does some rider kicks later on. I asked my friend Ethan, who's very much more into Kamen Rider than me, and he says it's very much more of a mix of Black RX and Amazons in terms of his design of his suit. So, yeah, he's very Kamen Rider-esque. Actually, thinking about it, the plot structure is very Kamen Rider-esque, with the main villain eventually just being revealed to be using the same power source as our hero. Just something I noticed. Also, I guess, fourthly, this is more in line with One Punch Man if you want to stick with the hero manga-based comparisons. Like, there's a hero association, there's some heroes being sponsored to be the face of companies, there's also some nonsensical heroes and villain organizations. I think the best way to describe Ratman is that it's One Punch Man if done slightly more straight-faced. The reason why I said slightly more straight-faced is because this is still a shonen title, complete with all the tropes of a shonen title. Like, we got the comedy relief characters in the Jackies, who are doing their best Skolomania cosplays. We got the stalwart protagonist, who is Ernest. We got some edgy counterparts for the edgelord readers to relate to, and most importantly, 2 love interests, with them each embodying a different stereotype. I only call it slightly more straight-faced because it's not using a walking Deus Ex Machina as its main character, which turns everything into a joke. Because here, Ratman, there's still some jokes, but it's less making fun of the genre and making more genre-typical jokes. Now, this all sounds like a turn-off, especially if you know me, as someone who hates unexplorative works. I very much like my manga to push the boundaries, even if it's ever so slightly, because it shows the creator wants to do something interesting with their concept. This manga doesn't do anything to push the boundaries, but I'm willing to look past it in this case, and it's probably because of my nostalgia, but here's my cope. It requires you to change your mindset. You don't go into this expecting something new, but something familiar. This is very much a comfort read where you can just revert to a more childhood sense of wonder, I guess, and just really enjoy it because of that. Yes, I know there's people who hate that sort of mindset, but if you're open-minded like me, I would recommend doing that for this title specifically. Okay, now that I've told you the mindset that this title should be approached with, or at least how I approach this title, let's talk about the actual quality of this title. When it comes to shonen manga, I personally believe its quality is best measured in two departments: its art direction and its fight scenes. So let's focus on the first one. I do think in the art direction department, it's a little too simple. Like, it gives you the feel of those learning to draw anime books. Very simple and not really stylized. I guess a better way to put it is there's no personal flair. Like, nothing really makes you see this on the shelf and go, hey, this looks familiar. With that said, I do think Ratman's design goes hard. We already talked about how he's very Kamen Rider-esque, but I do like that there's elements of, I guess you can say, monsters in it, like with the mask that's actually being his face. As you can see, with the typical mouthpiece of the mask actually opens up to show an actual, well, mouth with shark teeth and everything. Pair this with the explanation of how Shoto is able to transform into Ratman, with it pretty much being summed up as, yeah, we just rearrange your atoms every time you transform. And then you realize that this premise would be way better explored as a horror title. I mean, when Brightburn did it, it wasn't that bad, so there is merit to a superhero horror premise. Yes, that is a weird tangent, but you should be used to that by now. But also, they kind of lean into that as well, which is when I really think the fight scenes come into their own. Like, Shadow starts off as a terrible fighter, but due to how the transformation works, he does often find himself accidentally relying on the animal instincts to do most of the fighting for him. Actually, writing this all down made me realize how a lot of the effort seems to be funneled into the titular character. Like, I can't help but feel like the Ratman premise is the most well-realized part of the manga. Like, sure, they don't lean into its horror potential, like I keep yapping on about, but Ratman is essential to all the interesting parts of the manga, which honestly makes me like it more. Like, this isn't to say that the rest of the manga is bad, because to reiterate, we're here for something familiar and comfortable, and it does that well. I just found myself very much enjoying the style because it made me feel comfortable. It's just, it really, you just really want to get something more from this. Like, the premise is well realized, despite my groaning about how it could be done as a horror title. I also do want to extend such a compliment to Shudo. While Shudo is one letter removal from either being the FG equivalent of a plank of wood, or what I would love to do to people who say they unironically enjoy Brain Rot Girlfriend, I think he's a, well, good protac. He clearly wants to do good things and is willing to fight for it, even if it means fighting the heroes he looks up to. Apart from that, though, I do feel like the rest of the manga is kind of uninspired. Like, the other heroes aren't as interesting unless your name is Fat Man, because I love Fat Man. He's actually a great character, but I do think that the other heroes are at least two-dimensional and aren't very inspired design-wise, which is kind of a con, but going back to what is quickly becoming my clutch, it fits the vibe, because remember, we're here for comfort here. We're going for comfort, and I find it very comfortable. Like, sure, the Quartz heroes are just rip-offs of the Power Rangers, but I would rather go, oh, cool, this is our Power Ranger group parody, than, well, that's just the Power Rangers. And it really just requires that change of mindset to really enjoy this for what it is, but I guess that's also its greatest issue. We already kind of touched on this, but I really do think its biggest failing is the fact that it puts a lot of effort into realizing the Ratman persona and not putting enough of it into an interesting world or setting, which leaves it like I'm reading a less interesting Kamen Rider title. Like, think less build and more X-Aid for this comparison. And if I want to use this comparison, fair, I don't even think that's an accurate comparison, but those are like the only two Kamen Rider series I've finished at this time, so you're gonna have to forgive me. Look, like, X-Aid puts a lot of its story budget into the character basket, which pays off thanks to Dan. I fucking love Dan. But Build had the overall better story because it split its budget evenly across all aspects of its story, which leaves us with a more interesting setting and characters, even if the characters can't hold a candle to Dan. But frankly, I don't think anyone can hold a candle to Dan. No, seriously, I stand by that. You can pick a fight with me. You cannot beat Dan. Anyway, if you can't tell, the only thing I remember from X8, that's like the only thing I remember from X8, and I love that fact. But moving on from this comparison now, while I don't personally mind that it puts all his eggs in the Ratman basket, because I really do think they redid the parents well enough that it's worth the trade-off, I feel like it's tough to ask anyone else to share that mindset with me, especially seeing the day and age we live in now. Like, why read Ratman when you can read any other superhero title like Shy or One Punch Man to get your fix, as they have far more fleshed out settings on top of having the well realized main character. It's just not realistic to ask someone to read a manga on the basis that it's slightly worse than the other current titles on the market, when they could just read the other titles on the market. Like, I honestly think that the worst part of this, though, is the fact that I do think it holds up. Even after I remove my nostalgia goggles, I just don't think it's made for today's modern audiences, sadly. Like, even if you go in with the mindset of off-brand Kamen Rider, like my friend I know I did, you probably still better serviced by an actual Kamen Rider title. It really just lacks in a lot of areas that I think people would struggle to forgive it for. I am like really sad that I still end up putting it down like that, because I really do love this title, but it is unfortunate truth. I feel like if you didn't grow up with Ratman or titles like it, you would struggle to like it yourself. But as always, I urge you to give it a go if it sounds remotely interesting. Well, I think the chances are slim. You may end up enjoying it as much as I do. Now, since we're just being a little down, though, I do want to add a little bit of salt to the wound and reveal that this is one of the two works this manga ever penned. Like, after Ratman. Why do I have, like, feed Batman? Fuck me. Anyway, after Ratman and Murder Princess, they switched to just being an artist, and to their credit, they're still working in the industry, but I really would have loved to see them write new stories. Like, I feel like they could have kept growing to be a respectable figure in the industry, but it's not my place to criticize people's career choices, considering the fact I still work at a KFC. I guess I'll just be happy knowing that I will always have this diamond in the rough to come back to when I just want to feel, well, comfortable.